Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and I've got a super panel back on Mad Saturday. I've got John Clauser from My Music Corner. G'day, mate. How are you going?
Doing good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad. And I've also got Peter Wicks from Melbourne, from Wicksy Leagues. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Today, we are going to go back in time and revisit a compilation album called Speed Kills, the very best in speed metal. Now, this album came out on the Music for Nations label and was a bit of a benchmark compilation for the very best in speed metal in the mid-80s. I'm talking about Slayer, Megadeth. I'm talking about Celtic Frost. I'm talking about Destruction. It was an album that I listened to, wore out the vinyl grooves in the day, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to get a panel back and let's pick 3 songs each, our favorite songs of this album, and maybe go and do a few honorable mentions beyond that. So I'll start off with you, John. What's your first pick off this album that you would like to put a spotlight on? Speed Kills.
Okay.
Speed
wow.
metal.
So I pretty much was familiar with most of the bands on this compilation. I never knew of this compilation until you brought it up to me, but I was very familiar with practically every band but one, and that's the band I'm actually going to talk a little bit about. Italy's Bulldozer, with their little track here, "Insurrection of the Living Damned." So I love how the album cover here describes it. Total Venom clones, but better production.
I love it. Yes.
And that's about right. You know, that opening riff, you have, you know, the when the music finally does kick in, you have this really pretty cool riff. It's really drenched though in reverb and echo and a lot of effects. So it's probably, you know, a very low budget recording. I did notice it was produced by Algie Ward of Tank, so I know he had a hand in this. But yeah, boy, that really distorted vocal sound that you would hear in so many black metal bands like Venom and Possessed and so many others. I really thought this was a good track though. I thought it was a pretty well constructed song. You know, you get this really cool guitar solo section, and then you get by like about 420, you get into this much slower kind of a grinding riff and groove to finish out the song. I thought it was a really cool track. But you know, I was never much of a black metal or death metal guy, so bands like Venom and bands like this, I never really took all that seriously. But I really liked the sound of Bulldozer. It makes me kind of want to listen to the rest of the album that this comes from. So so there you go. Very raw, very raw Nawabum feel. But yeah, you gotta love that very distorted vocal that you almost have to look the lyrics up and figure out what it is he was singing about. But Italy's Bulldozer. Pretty good. I could agree with these Venom clone with better production.
And I've got to say the notes are just a crack up on this album. And as each of you pick a song, I'll read out the liner notes or the little commentary for each track. It's a bit of a hoot. Okay, Pete, what's your first pick off Speed Kills?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get the liner notes to read, so I'm actually quite looking forward to hearing what they say. My first track, I'm going to go with Exodus, A Lesson in Violence. And I mean, when I was, at the time this came out, I was right into this sort of stuff. It was, everything was go faster, and, you know, it wasn't proper metal if it wasn't, you know, hard and fast. Exodus were one of the bands that were really going to be one of the bands to watch. There was a few on the short list. There was obviously Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Exodus were right up there amongst it. And this was off the album. This track was off the album that was going to do it for him. Bonded by Blood. That was a huge album back in the day, and this is a great track off it. Vocally, it's along. It's not the your typical death metal growling vocals that you hear these days, and that came along, in the not too distant future after these albums came out. So it was kind of your high pitched yelling and squealing along. The guitar. The thing that got me about this period is the guitar work always sounds like it's like when you had a vinyl record and you put it on, it was on the wrong speed. Everything sounds like at a high pitch and just really, 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 really fast. So it's like you've got a 33 record on 45 or something or other. But a lot of the bands at that time had that feel, and Exodus to me were one of those bands. One of the other things that I do like about this track is that at the way it ends, it just sort of grinds down to like a slow pitch and just goes blah, 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 blah. It just sort of ends. It doesn't have a sharp, hit you in the guts type ending. It's sort of like, I don't know what the word for it is, but it just winds down at the end. And that's done a lot now, but it wasn't done a lot back then. So it was kind of a new thing back then, which sort of set them apart. But it's still a great track. And yeah, I don't know whatever happened to them after this, but they certainly didn't get anywhere near the heights of the others I mentioned, Megadeth and Metallica and Slayer. It's they were one of the bands to watch back at the time.
Absolutely, and they were one of the Bay City thrashers. There were quite a few bands in that area. That was a real sort of fertile pool for thrash metal, wasn't it, John? In that in particular area, so many great bands coming from. And it was kind of like a mirror image. It was like a polar opposites of what was happening in Hollywood, because you had the Hollywood, the glam scene, and there, in San Francisco, it was just like all these great thrash bands coming out.
Poison and everything like that in LA, and these guys, Bay Area bashers,
I love the vocal inflections of the singer for Exodus. I'll teach you a lesson in violence that you'll never forget. It's just so.
He's not even I think he was the original vocalist. I've forgotten his name. I think he was the original vocalist. He was there when they did their demo, but then he came back for this album, and I don't think he was there for much longer after this album. So they seemed to go for a bit of a tumultuous time with singers, so perhaps that was why they never really kicked on.
Well, they're also known for providing Metallica with Kirk Hammett. He was in Exodus, and look, a lot of people think that they should be, if there was a big 6 or a big 7 of thrash, they're right up there. But I agree, they never seem to go on with it after Bonded by Blood. That's their big album.
That was the big one. That was their master of puppets, if you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a great pick. Well, the song I'm going to pick is probably, I think, the greatest thrash riff of all time. And I'm talking about a German band called Destruction, and the song is Bestial Invasion. This is just absolute magnificence. They are one of the big 4 of German thrash metal, along with Sodom, Creator, and Tankard. But to me, Destruction are numero uno, and this song is just 4 minutes or so of just complete mayhem. It's a masterpiece. It starts off with this little riff, and then there's a time signature change, and it just switches into this helter-skelter time signature, and it seems like you can imagine it's like stormtroopers from hell coming into Earth and just invading the world. It is just total chaos. The lyrics: hellstorms rush over the earth, bestial invasion. I just love even the German, the way he's singing with the German inflection. It's just brilliant. I don't know, John, when Pete and I used to go to gigs, it was a tradition that after a gig, we'd go to McDonald's to the drive-through, like takeaway in America.
Mhm.
So we're in our
Oh, yeah.
car. We're in our car, and I put in a mixtape. And my mixtape always started off with Ace of Spades by Motorhead. And the second song, just to spring on everyone, was Bestial Invasion. And I remember, I think Peter Wicks might have been in the back seat of the car, and I put it on, and suddenly everyone in the back seat of the car was slam dancing, and the car's going rattling like this, because it's one of those songs that you hear that you just want to slam.
Yes.
And pogo.
Absolutely.
It's just magnificent. They're a great band. Mad Butcher was one. Eternal Devastation is another. I'll put a shout out for them. You got Schmei on bass, Mike Seringa and Tommy Sandman on drums. Mike Seringa is on guitars. Maybe my pronunciations are not right, but I just think it's just magnificent. It's one of the greatest thrash songs of all time. And I've played this song to a lot of punks that we used to hang out with, because in the late 80s, there was a bit of a crossover between hardcore punk and thrash, vice versa. And the guys that used to love The Exploited and GBH and all that hard edge, hardcore punk, they grooved on that. They loved it.
Yeah.
They absolutely thought it was the bee's knees. So anyway, Bestial Invasion, Destruction. And reading out the comments on the back was speed, total speed, horrid, but amazing. Horrid, but amazing.
But you gotta love his voice. He had such a menacing, in those early days, he had a menacing, higher pitched, growling voice, screaming voice that was just perfect for that sound. That buzzsaw, just nasty, grimy production.
Yeah.
That it just worked so well. I mean,
they had a really odd pitch at the time on the guitars as well. Like it sounded really tinny, but like heavily distorted tinny. I don't know. I think they call it
tremolo picking.
Right.
There's some sort of technique. It was like a kind of a tremolo picking. I'm not a guitarist, but that's what I've read. And I love the drummer. The drummer is slightly behind the beat. It seems like he can barely keep up, but it all works.
Yeah, it all works so well. I loved it when you. I loved it when you showed the album of theirs, and like "Curse the Gods" was like, always playing for me. I loved "Curse the Gods." That opening and that eerie opening, and then that menacing opening riff. Oh man, just great song.
Mad Butcher was a great.
Eternal Band, great stuff. Well, Peter, for your Exodus track, we didn't get to read that one. Raw energy, but tighter than Dave Reynolds' wallet. Music to Nuke Cities 2. That was for the Exodus track. I don't know who Dave Reynolds is off the top of my head, but obviously there's
those guys like Dave Ling and Jeff Barton. I think they're all Kerrang writers. So it's got that Kerrang feel. If you ever got that magazine, a little bit of tongue in cheek. I love the writing style of that magazine. That was like a weekly must buy.
Right.
There used to be so many magazines back in the day.
Man, I've just been on vacation and I was in Hawaii, and I went to a newsstand. No magazines anymore. They're gone. Zero.
All gone.
Can't even get a newspaper. It's like magazines
everything's gone digital.
Absolutely gone.
I tried to get even Rolling Stone. I tried to get Rolling Stone at my local news agency, and I can't even subscribe to it. I'd have to get them to send it out from the States.
Yeah. I really sort of get nostalgic about the golden age of the magazines, like Metal Edge, Kerrang. Rip was one. I think.
Circus and Hit Parader for me.
Yeah, Circus. That's it. Yeah.
Do you still own them, John?
No. No. Most of them got cut apart and were put up on my walls at the time.
Absolutely.
So no, I don't have that stuff anymore.
Yeah. All right.
Ah.
There you go. So we just got through that song. But sorry, guys, that is the best song on the album for me. So I've just had to put it up.
It's one I was going to choose, but I knew you were choosing it. So,
all right, JC, what's your next pick?
Well, let's. I'm going to do the leadoff track from Hallow's Eve, Atlanta, Georgia-based band. Their song "Metal Merchants" off their first album, Tales of Terror, and I believe this version may have been the one that was on their demo. But they described this one as Maiden meets progressive thrash, legendary. Yeah, that's about the right way of describing Hallow's Eve. I first heard of them with their song Lethal Tendencies, which the vocalist Stacey Anderson has a much more deeper growl. Like if Molly Hatchet's vocalist just did like Cookie Monster vocals. And that's kind of what he sounded like. He had this, this really deep guttural, which this one was much more, he's just like much more of a punk sound vocal, but just straight ahead. Metal Merchants, this is we are planting the flag of metal and we are going to fight. How many bands were coming out with songs like that in the mid 80s? I think of the band Thrust with their song Posers, The Posers Will Die. That one comes to mind really quickly, but yeah, just another great lead off track. Great guitar work here by Dave Stewart and a Skeletor, as he was called on the album, a guy named Steve Shoemaker. Just a good band. I loved a lot of their stuff. They could do the slow, plodding, really heavy stuff, but then they could do the good thrashy speed metal stuff, like Plunging to Megadeth would be another song that comes to mind. But yeah. I thought it was a good lead off track was hearing Hallow's Eve, the Metal Merchant song. So yeah,
nice.
Yeah, good stuff.
I always thought that the singer, I'm only going off Edge of Insanity, had a little bit of a John Linden from Sex Pistols vocal inflection. He kind of a little bit punkish. Mm-hmm. Like the band's kind of very metal, but his vocals were kind of very, very punky. And another observation in this genre of speed metal, heavy metal, thrash metal, it's very referential. There's a lot of songs that have the word metal. Why do hardcore punk or punk, they don't really have many songs that I'm aware of that reference the word punk. But metal, it's always metal. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
It just is I don't know, is maybe punk was a little bit more of a derogatory way of putting it in their songs, but with metal, it's like, that's like an attitude. That's a war cry right there. But I don't know, punk, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of crossover here because we're talking about speed and thrash. It was crossing over, but I think metal was very referential in their lyrics and always about the word metal. But you don't get that so much in punk. Is that an observation that you've noticed, Pete?
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if it's because most of the punk that we term as punk now, at the time it was all pretty new. So maybe they hadn't come up with the term. Maybe that was just a term picked up by the press.
Yeah.
Whereas in this era, metal had been around for a while. So these guys were like, well, we're more hardcore metal than all those that came before type.
I've actually also got a theory that metal was more working class. And I think a lot of the critics, like your NMEs, Rolling Stones, looked at punk more favorably and metal a little bit lower class.
Yeah.
So a lot of the folk was kind of like a band of brothers, and that's why they did a lot of the lyrical content just talking about metal, just to band together, because they felt like they were kind of being ignored, looked down upon, maybe condescended upon. I don't know.
Yeah, it's that whole sort of class movement thing, whereas like a lot of punk bands were singing about politics and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
I suppose metal weren't really singing about that.
This is a genre of music where they were definitely getting around beyond the sex, drugs, and parties of Motley Crue. There was a lot of discussion of religion, Satanism, a lot more darker. And Metallica, their lyrics were definitely getting into the, you can't say they were shallow. So this was
No.
definitely a pool that was a lot deeper. But yeah, just an observation, just a lot of albums and songs just referencing metal this, metal that. But on the punk side, on the hardcore, not so much. But I'm sure that there's going to be some viewers and commenters going, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. That's so incorrect. And they'll just do a big, long list. But just in my encounters with music.
Yeah, well, Metallica were kind of lyrically set themselves apart from everyone else from where I sat, because they sang about all kinds of things. Like a lot of it's about war, you know, like For Whom the Bell Tolls and whatnot. But you also have biblical stuff, like Creeping Death is all about biblical stuff. So they
depression with Fade to Black.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were quite diverse in their lyrics, while most of it had a theme of death because that was the thing at the time. It wasn't so much about, you know, crematoriums and digging up graves and things like that. It was just it looked a bit further, a bit more mainstream, if you like, a bit more easy for your average listener to pick up on, rather than going, this is all weird lyrics. It's had a bit more meaning behind it, I suppose. Yeah,
absolutely. Anyway, JC, that was a fantastic pick. Pete, what's your next pick off this album?
Well, as soon as they were talking about Metallica, I suppose I'll go with Fight Fire with Fire. This, to me, this is obviously it's on the compilation album, but it's the track one off the second album, Ride the Lightning. I don't know about you guys, but that's the Metallica record I go to when I want to listen to a Metallica record. To me, it's their best. I mean, it's line ball with master, but to me, this is their best album, and it was their breakthrough album. It was when they changed from the style of Kill 'Em All, which if you listen to the tracks off Kill 'Em All, the tracks off Kill 'Em All would probably fit onto this compilation better than the stuff off Ride the Lightning. But anyway, so Fight Fire with Fire, it was of all the tracks on the album at the time, these guys brought in the bass. Most of the speed metal at the time was very much high pitch and fast guitar work, and it didn't have the thud of the bass. This Metallica did. So Metallica brought the bass sound right back, and it was just like really in your face thumping bass. Started off with the soft, obviously, you know, the not acoustic guitar, but the soft mellow guitar, and then bang, it hits you in the guts. Just a all round. That song showed where Metallica were going, and it's where they've still ended up now. It's fantastic track, and it's a standout in style, I think, from the other tracks on the album. Like it's and you could, it's more mature, I suppose. God, I hate to use that word, but it shows a maturity that perhaps some of the other bands never mastered later on. So yeah. But at the same time, it still had all the things that you would look for people in that who were into the speed metal at the time. They were a real crossover band. Like even the people that didn't like speed metal, like Metallica.
Absolutely.
It was hard to say they're not musicians and they're not good songwriters, because they were a mile apart from everybody else.
Yeah. No, great pick. Off the linear notes on the back. Best track on Ride the Lightning, no commercial wimp out here. Absolutely, it's a outstanding track. I love how it's sort of you've got that acoustic, and then it's got that build up, and you can hear the hi-hats, coming in, and then it's just this thunderous riff. And I just wish Metallica was still like that. I just think that through Load, Reload, all those experimental albums, they've tried to get their mojo back, but they just can't get it. I just don't think it's just not the same. Those first three are like the holy scrolls of thrash metal. heavy metal, and I don't think it can touch it. But
No, it doesn't.
no matter how they say we're going to go back to basics, their albums are too long. And I did a show with Martin Popoff, and I've said a theory that a thrash metal album should not go longer than 40 minutes. They shouldn't do two double albums or triple albums. It's just that's prog metal for me. A thrash metal album should be snappy. It should be like Rain and Blood, 30 minutes, get to it.
In your face.
In your face, absolutely. Yeah. And I just don't think Metallica have ever got that mojo back.
Yeah, they're an interesting case study, aren't they? I mean, I see the stuff they're doing now, and live, I think they're absolutely awesome. I think they do an awesome job live. And I know that they some of the stuff I've seen of them on their current tour, they kick off with songs from Ride the Lightning. You know, They start up with the title track and For Whom the Bell Tolls, and they're not so much focused on the new stuff. The new albums, I don't know. The latest album, I thought it was supposed to be them going back to what they used to be, and music-wise, I thought it sounded like Helmet. They reminded me a lot of Helmet back in their glory days. So yeah, nothing new, but I think live they're just phenomenal.
Yeah. What do you think, JC? You think Metallica still haven't regained that early mojo?
You know, it's so funny. I got off the train with the Black Album, and even really before that, I kind of lost it even on Injustice for All. To this day, I've never listened to Load or Reload or Saint Anger or Lulu. I don't think anybody's listened to Lulu actually. But I have Death Magnetic. I have the Destruction, whatever that thing was called, with the faces going all cuckoo, and then the latest one. Hardwired. The Hardwired album. Thank you. That's what I was losing. I mean, they were okay. I mean, they're not bad. I thought I saw them on the Hardwired tour. You know, other than I think they played like 4 or 5 songs from the album, and everything else was pretty much older stuff. You know, so I was happy to see Creeping Death. I was happy to see Fade to Black. I was happy to see Master of Puppets and One and Seek and Destroy and stuff like that. I don't know. You know, it's after they lost me with Enter Sandman, I just couldn't quite figure that out, because they just that was a step backwards, or a step somewhere. I don't know if backwards is right, but
I think the evidence is that Cliff Burton must be the missing ingredient, because he's on the holy scrolls of those first 3 albums, and since that, not quite as good.
And since the bass is missing on Injustice for All.
Have you read some of the explanations from Lars why it wasn't? It's just
excuses.
It's like the dog ate my homework. Sorry. Anyway,
it made a good video though. That the movie, you know.
No, I disagree. Sometimes you just don't want to get into the inner circle and see the workings of it. I think that was just. I didn't really want to see that.
It was like a car crash in slow motion. It was just, I mean, it get very gutsy of them to allow it and to go through with it. But it's
it was great seeing Lars at art auctions, and James driving one of his 100
things
MGs. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. All right, back onto the show. Let's talk about Speed Kills. All right, my next pick is Canadian speed power metalers Exciter. I have a lot of fondness for this band. Heavy Metal Maniac is a bit of a masterpiece. They meld their sound on a 1 part Judas Priest, 1 part Motorhead, maybe a little bit sped up. This song, Riders from the Darkness, really sort of crystallizes that sound. A lot of people don't like Dan Betchler's vocals, a little bit, they say it's a little bit banchy, a little bit screechy. I like it. I think it's fine. And Yeah. This song I really like on the album because it's got a bit of an Iron Maiden gallop. Goes and then it kind of goes into something that's like a prototype Motorhead. They were actually going to come to Australia, Pete, first time ever, and then COVID hit, and
Really?
I haven't seen them, rescheduled. So hopefully they come down to this end of the the world. JC, have you ever seen Exciter? Have they ever been in your parts?
No, I didn't really. I mean, I had a couple of their albums, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was another one of those bands where I just started grabbing all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
But there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah.
You just can't. I had that problem as a teenager, and I still have that problem as near 54. So go figure.
Yeah, absolutely. But highly underrated. Violence and Force, horrible album cover, but great album. 1984 is a great album. Long Live the Loud. It's got that's probably the end. And then they started to smooth out their edges with Unveiling the Wicked, 1986, and not so good. So reading this, new song by Cannabis, #1 power metalers. So that's the commentary on that song. But Riders from Darkness, I think it's a cracker of a track.
Doesn't appear on any of their albums. I was looking through the discography. Doesn't appear on anything. Yeah. And my only question is, how in the heck can he sing that kind of style and drum?
Tight undies. Tight underpants.
Boom.
Yeah. You don't get a lot of singer drummers in metal or punk, do you? It's
not singing that kind of style.
No.
Look, I'm sorry, I'm being humorous here, but I like it. I like it.
Oh yeah,
I like his bench.
I'm not disparaging it. It just that it takes a lot to drum that kind of style, and then to be able to sing that higher pitched kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, the thing in that genre, they all like to have a really high squeal. It's at some point, like it's that the whole banshee squeal.
Yeah.
It's not so much now in that, if you were to death metal, it's all about
Look, I've always had kudos for anybody that sings and is behind the skins, behind the drums.
There's been some good ones.
Yeah.
Being Case from the Hard-Ons. Awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
In the Air Tonight.
Yes.
Maybe not. All right. JC, what's your next pick?
Oh, all right. Well, let's go Celtic Frost. Let's pick the album Ender. Into the Crypts of Rays from their debut album. Euro thrash. Once a joke, these guys now kick serious ass is their thing here. They're meeting, of course, from the Hellhammer days, which I've heard some of that Hellhammer stuff. That was pretty noisy. Not much cohesiveness there, in my opinion. It just was. This is pretty brutal to listen to. But this song, you start off with that crazy screaming vocal sound thing in the beginning, and then it just kicks. It just kicks into this great thrashy speed sound. You got Tom's kind of broken English trying to sing through the words. Definitely a lot more musical than Hellhammer was. So I'm, and I think Tom's guitar tone here pretty much sets the bar for what that extreme metal, black metal, death metal sound is going to have. You're going to have a lot of bands copying this kind of sound. And I think Tom really sets the bar here. This early Celtic Frost just is so much more different and extreme, and then you go into from like what was it, Morbid Tales, and then Emperor's Return, and then you get into Megatheron. They're starting to kind of get a little different in their sound, and then Into the Pandemonium comes out, and that's almost avant-garde in times.
Mm.
And then you have Cold Lake. I love Cold Lake, but that's a show for another day. Into the Crypts of Rays, I think is was a wonderful track from those early days. Made me kind of want to go out and find that album again and listen through some of that early stuff. Because it's been a while since I listened to early Celtic Frost. So yeah, good old Tom G. Warrior. Ooh, actually, he doesn't do that on this song, but yeah,
thumbs up, great track, and I think Tom is very underrated in the scheme of things. I just think it's just a wonderful track. Actually, all the tracks on this album are wonderful, folks. I mean, if you were going to get the idea of a compilation is to give you a sampler and then explore and go down the rabbit hole of these various bands. I don't think there's really one dud track on this album. And it certainly wants, sort of gives you the prompt to explore. So, no,
it's
top.
It's like a time capsule.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, what's your next pick?
Okay, last but certainly not least, Slayer, which probably doesn't come as a surprise to you, Pete. Evil Has No Boundaries. Now, on the compilation, it's live. I'm not sure where they recorded it, but it's the song itself is the debut track off their debut album, and it's recognisable. The Slayer we all know now is still recognisable as the Slayer back then, although it is a much different sound. Anybody that doesn't think it's the same Slayer that they're used to now only has to this track in particular, this particular live version. Just listen to Tom's scream at the start, and it is exactly the same scream as that kicks off Angel of Death. Exactly the same scream, and you just know it's Slayer when you hear Tom doing his squealing, screaming from hell. It's the thing that I think set Slayer apart, Tom's voice. I think he's got an amazing voice in it, and for a speed metal band or a thrash metal, death metal band, whatever you want to call them, his voice actually has a bit of range. Most of them don't. If they do have range, they don't tend to exercise it very much in there. But he certainly did. The other thing that I think set Metallica Slayer apart was the guitar work. So you had Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King. They had a similar guitar sound, but it was still different. And it was like every single song had like a guitar duel. It was like, I don't know, like dueling banjos or whatever you want to call it. But the guitar solos were not just one guitar solo. It was two short guitar solos. And it always felt like they were competing to outdo each other. Which kind of like set them apart. Most of the other bands, if you had a lead, you also had a rhythm, and the rhythm guitarist didn't really go for the guitar solos. Whereas Slayer, it was like you had two lead guitarists, and both of them were going after each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a fantastic track. It's nothing like the grungy, dirtier, heavier riffs that you would hear in later Slayer songs, but it's still quite distinctively Slayer.
Great. Nice pick. Well said. The commentary on the back of the album is unreleased live version by Speed's Greatest Demigods. Enough said. I was going to pick this song. I'm glad you picked it. I just want to put a shout out for Jeff Hannaham's guitar work. It's just sublime. His guitar leads are it's just fireworks. And Kerry King is just doing these crunch power chords. When you listen to it and you strip it down, to me, it sounds like sped up Motorhead.
Yes.
So if you slowed it down, you could think, it's very similar sounding to Motorhead, but they just take it like sped it up maybe twice speed or 1.5 times speed, and then it becomes a Slayer
Mm.
I love that buzzsaw guitar sound.
Mm.
It's wonderful. That early Slayer is quite nice. I recently got this. I haven't opened it up, folks. I just recently got. They've just done a reissue of all the early Slayer albums on orange and black split vinyl.
Wow.
Lads. So there you go.
That's my Slayer right there. Hallow was always my favorite Slayer album.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was the one that got me in.
Yeah. I got in with Live Undead. But then I saw Hallow and I'm like, I gotta get this. And that was always that one was always mine.
Yeah, well, I've always said that the greatest thrash metal album of all time is Rain and Blood, and I just think that's a masterpiece. I'm not a big fan of Rick Rubin, but whatever he did, the planets aligned, because he was able to take this jagged, rambunctious group of musicians, because a lot of the early Slayer sound has that sort of garagey sound to it, a little bit raw, but what he was able to do with the separation of instruments, he just turned that into a modern rock masterpiece. It's just nothing has ever surpassed, in my opinion, Rain and Blood.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I said it earlier, the guitar work on a lot of the songs and albums at the time, it sounded like it was, like you were saying before, sped up. So it sounded like it was on 45 because it had that higher pitch. And I think because they were just playing it so fast, it sounded like it was at a higher pitch or the wrong speed. I think what Rick Rubin did with Rain in Blood is he found a way to still have it at that speed, but bring the distortion and the lower pitch back in. And I think that set the tone for everything since that day.
Yeah, he was on fire. Like he's worked with the Beastie Boys at that time, and Slayer. And then I've read articles what he did with Black Sabbath 13, and Geezer Butler said, "What did he do? He just laid on the couch and told him to listen to Black Sabbath 1 and or the debut, and I think they were quite pissed off. They probably paid all this money and he's lying on the couch as some sort of guru. But whatever he did with Rain and Blood was just absolute magnificence. And I think there's a lot more light and shade. And I think he brought a sense of dynamics to their music, where a lot of their early stuff was just full on, one gear.
I think it's the difference between a Metal Blade budget, an early Metal Blade budget, and a major label budget. They were able to, and plus what I mean, Ron Fair produced Hello or he produced it. I mean, Ron Fair is not exactly known as a thrash metal guy, so I think that they had a big difference with who they got to work with, how they got it recorded, and stuff like that. So
yeah.
But then Rick Rubin at the time, he was known for Run DMC and LL Cool J. So
true.
It's not like he was a death metal guy. He might have listened to it. He might have been a fan, but
true.
He was a rap producer.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you remember, there was a bit of backlash with some of his some of those guys, like the LL Cool J's and the Run DMCs. They were sort of not feeling terribly comfortable that Rick was doing work with Slayer because of Angel of Death and some of the lyrical content. There was a major backlash.
Yeah, well, Russell Simmons, the owner of Def Jam, they ended up splitting. It became Def American and Def Jam went their separate ways.
Yeah. But look, I'll reference Rolling Stone magazine or whatever. They say the top 500 albums of all time. I think it's in there, or it should be.
It is, yeah.
It's like top tier metal of all time. But getting back to this one, great pick, Pete. One of many great picks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same scream can be heard on that epic album as on their very debut track on their debut album. That's how it all kicks off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. Well, I'll finish it up with a band called Possessed and the song Pentagram from 1985. Now, arguably, this was the very first death metal band, the first with those grunted vocals and a whole lot of tremolo picking. Now, the reason why I picked this song is the guitar work is just bonkers. When you listen to it, it's got a little bit of psychedelia. It's got it's complex. It's all over the shop, but it just works so well within the context of the song. These guys were influenced by the new wave of British metal, Venom, Maiden, and Motorhead. They're kind of in the category of forgotten. Yes, there was a lot of satanic imagery, but one thing can't be denied. They were kind of the innovators and very influential in the world of death metal, black metal, etc. So that's my first pick. My final pick, Possessed and Pentagram from 1985. And the comment on the album is The New Gods, Total Thrash Mayhem, Intense.
In all caps.
In all caps.
And it's so
caps.
And it's so crazy. It's so crazy to think when you talk about the guitar work, Larry Lalonde, one of the guitar players in the band, is in Primus.
Oh, wow.
You know, think about that one think about that for a few minutes.
Yeah.
He was in Possessed with another guy. And yeah, when Possessed splits up, he winds up going on with Les Claypool, and he's been in Primus ever since. So
well, there we have it.
Les Claypool, the guy that they wouldn't hire in Metallica because they thought he was too good.
or something.
That's what Kirk Hammett said. He was too good.
Yeah. Kirk and the wah wah pedal.
Yeah.
All right.
The
remaining tracks: Venom, black metal, cracker of a song. Venom, probably by accident, created a genre of music.
They probably did. It was like they were trying to outdo everyone with imagery at the time.
And they accidentally created a genre. And that's a whole new show. But one thing can be denied. You can't ignore them. Black metal.
Especially
alternative, brand new version of a classic Total Mayhem. Voivod, another great band. Raw but Total Death, Love, or FOAD. Megadeth, Rattlehead. We haven't spoken about that. Progressive thrash.
Down to bring that up.
Technical Thinking Man's fave thrash band. But save those three numbers. We've covered it all, folks. This has been a whole lot of fun because we've talked a lot about philosophy and we've gone down a few rabbit holes, and it's just been beyond this album. But it shows, guys, that one album can plant the seed for our musical journey, because just this one album I developed a love for thrash metal and metal and went down and explored all these different bands. And I think it's, in my opinion, one of the great compilations. And a quick shout out to some other compilations that were really good. Speed Metal Kills. I don't know if you've seen that one, John. That's a little bit more.
Heard of it, but I've not seen it yet. No.
Yeah. And this is the big one in America, which has had a reissue, Metal Massacre.
Oh, Metal Massacre, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
A bit more, not thrashy, but a bit more indie sort of heavy metal, hard rock, but nevertheless. So great compilations and a good sort of starting point for just to explore.
Yeah.
So
interesting
thanks,
how
guys.
so many bands are still around too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All righty. So, John Clouser, My Music Corner, what have you got coming up, mate?
Well, we have been doing a little series on these guys, Armored Saint. So we'll be me and John the Music Nut will be doing recording La Raza this weekend. So we've been enjoying doing Armored Saint. And that's we're just going to ride that series out, and then we'll see what we're going to get into next.
Fantastic. Check it out, My Music Corner. And John also appears on this channel. We'll probably do a rock postcards pretty soon. And you see him on the Contrarian, so check him out. Just put in John Clouser on YouTube and you'll get hundreds of videos worth looking up. Peter Wicks, anything in Wixie Leaks world? Any scandals? Any articles coming up?
No, nothing like that. We've got the referendum coming up for the Indigenous Voice to Parliament. Went and saw the concert in Shepparton last night. Had a big lineup: Hilltop Hoods, Briggs, Jimmy Barnes, Paul Kelly.
Okay.
It was a great show actually, and they were all. It was kind of like watching a jam session. They all came on and did bits and pieces with each other, which was pretty good. But yeah, at the moment I'm just counting down the days till L7. I cannot wait to see L7. And unfortunately, Royal Blood are playing at the same bloody time.
It always happens. There's a bit of a conflict.
Gee, unbelievable. I would have loved to have seen them as well. But alas,
nice.
There can be only one.
You just can't exactly split yourself in half and go to one and go to the other, though.
You'd think a good tour manager would actually look up and go, oh, hang on, this might be a conflict, but apparently not.
Never happens.
No.
Yeah. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation on this little channel. Your likes, click the bell, be part of the family. We cover all sorts of rock. So, look, if you don't like this type of genre of music, there's something around the corner you might like. We cover everything, and it's just my musical taste. I'm sorry, I'm not into one genre. I'm into many, and this is what I want to cover on this station. So please like and subscribe. Put your comments. Tell us what you think of this compilation, what your favorite tracks were. But one thing's for sure, we'll get this group of lads back for another chat, metal, hard rock, something or other in the foreseeable future. See you later. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.